Everyone. So I'm Rob Hankin. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Cybit. So we are a technology solution provider based nationally. Why am I relevant to this? I'm not a data center expert. I certainly know a little bit about it, but not as much as the audience, the speakers that you've heard so far. I'm effectively a data and an AI expert. Engaged quite a lot within cybersecurity over the years as well, but effectively I've worked in data and AI now for 26 years. Let's say 20 years in AI, 26 years within data. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my perspective, my experience from looking at the industry and looking from an academic perspective as well in terms of the AI and the cybersecurity resilience space. It was great to hear from Anna before in the previous panel about how AI can help. I'm an optimist. I love to go and talk about the benefits of AI. In this session, I'm actually going to talk about the negatives and I'm going to talk about the doom and gloom of how AI is out to get us all. Maybe not so much. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll talk about understanding the evolving AI threats. So what really are the threats that are out there? We'll have a look at the increased risks for data centers specifically, which is obviously pertinent to this conversation. And then we're going to talk about resilience strategies. So from my perspective and looking at the evolving threat of AI, these are the areas which really are the most concerning. So AI allows us to automate in a huge way. So it can allow the automation of attack planning and also the execution. So imagine the idea of distributed denial of service attacks, but in a really, really smart way. Imagine the idea of no attack looking the same because every single one is actually tweaking slightly differently, which really evades a lot of those traditional vulnerability scanners or threat detection. It can accelerate. It can accelerate the discovery of vulnerabilities, which I'll come on to, and also it makes it accessible. Okay, so we now know that everyone out there is a software developer because they can go and stick something into ChatGPT and Claude, and it can write them a bit of code, right? Understand that any threat actor is the same. So lowering that skill barrier. So now hobbyists can launch complex attacks. So all of these programming languages are out there. Don't forget, these huge LLMs that are being used to go and generate code, they are not just exposed to these fantastic bits of code that says, let's go and do AI for good. They're also exposed to all the theories about how AI can be used for bad. So understand, this is the hobbyist kid in the bedroom that is able to go and start generating this, or it is more complex threat actors who are able to go and try new things that maybe they didn't that didn't warrant their time before. LLMs, so large language models are able to assist in the phishing, malware, and reconnaissance within this. So understand, you've got an external web page, you can then start using AI to start looking at that code that's behind it, what's exposed within there, but also how was it written? Because that can start to look at patterns where we can try and find other vulnerabilities. And also the industrialization of attacks. So that's one of the great things of AI. It can push into automation, and then we can go and start using that for huge amounts of scaling out of these tasks. But of course, we can use that for nefarious purposes as well. So I am sure you work in this industry, you probably know about this much more intimately than I do. But this is the scale of why data centers are being attacked in this kind of this hack situation. So within Indonesia's national data center, the huge impact that it had within that. Now, the organization that did this are a very well-known threat actor, and they are starting to go and engage in these kind of AI technologies to go and look at new ways of exploiting. But these are a tried and tested old method. Old methods are getting through, especially in underinvested data centers where cybersecurity hasn't necessarily been at the forefront. This is very much people calling for the head of government ministers to go and resign after the impact of this, and subsequently the government have invested heavily into, or will be investing heavily once they start into the creation of the Indonesian cyber force. So we know that the impact is massive within this. But why is a data center a prime target? You have high value data concentration. So why would I go and hack an organization? Why would I hack them directly? Why would I not go and target somewhere where potentially there is a lot of information there to go after? But also you are more vulnerable because of the shared environment risks. because you can go and secure the perimeter of what's happening within there, but ultimately those workloads that are tunneling out of your premises, they are effectively opening up risk attack vectors within there. And also there's a potential for cascading failures, which I'll come on to in terms of the infrastructure that runs your data center. So this is from Trellix, so like them or not, but data centers are attractive targets for cyber criminals due to the number of attack vectors and the ability to scale attacks once a foothold has been achieved. So they're surely more attractive to go after within certainly hobbyist type attackers as well as more established attackers. When it comes to looking at targets, a data center has all of those flags. This is from Sam Altman. So understand that we're talking about cybersecurity with AI, and this is something that the biggest talkers about AI are actually discussing. So an AI that could design novel biological pathogens, an AI that could hack into computer systems. I think these are all scary. For me, the conversation today, what we're talking about, actually combines the two, because anything that is there designing novel biological pathogens ultimately is the same sort of thing that can go and design a computer virus, a worm type code that can go and self-replicate and cause a lot of damage within here. So it's interesting that he picks up on the computer systems and also the biological patterns, and they fit very, very well together when we look at how attacks are created today. So how about that sort of reconnaissance? So accelerating the vulnerability discovery. So LLMs can scan not just the environments that you're working with, the code that you're putting out there. Understand that a lot of the modern GPTs, so if you look at things like ChatGPT with their operator functionality, you look at Augment Code, you're looking at Gemini, they can execute code as well. So that entire LLM, which is just simply being giving you an answer, can now create a script and execute the script. So they're able to go and at mass scale be able to go and produce these type of operations. Now, obviously, we've got to consider, do these threat actors want to go and take the cost of all of these products to be able to go and do it? But of course, a lot of these environments are offering on-premise, co-located type GPT functionality, where actually you can go and do the scale without exactly the same sort of cost as a SaaS type environment. Those AI LLMs and the GPTs can identify the weak spot in external systems, as we talked about, and also it can automate the exploit development, which means systematic approach to build, test, build, test. So what of your operational systems are at risk? So when we talk about the cybersecurity threat, we often think about the workloads that are within there, but the power, the cooling, all of your external interfaces that could be exposed. And in many data centers that for resilience capability, they are having their systems accessible remotely, so that an engineer in the middle of the night can go and respond to something, depends on your size. But any time that you're exposing those systems outside of your environment, they are potentially attack vectors. Data centers often use legacy and insecure protocols. I know a lot of organizations who work with typically old type PLC networks, especially when it comes to cooling and power management, and they are tried and tested. They are no longer technology, they are engineering, and engineering doesn't necessarily move as quick as technology in some of these locations. Again, modern data center, you expect to have those controls. It's always going to be some level of vulnerability of some legacy type piece of hardware in there where there's code exposed. And of course, the remote access increases your attack surface. An example, external interfaces we've talked about, but remote access ports, unpatched web consoles, and legacy APIs that are exposed to the internet. I guarantee you all have some of them. How far that goes and permeates into your system, only you can answer. In terms of operational systems, so your supply chain vulnerabilities. So understand that a lot of times you are connecting information from a data center out to other organizations, maybe someone who's doing remote power management, maybe someone who's actually managing your cooling for you. So it might not be your systems, may not be your operational systems that are actually the threat. It may be the ones that you've connected through to a third party. So understand what your interface is there to them. And also AI enhanced exploitation across the ecosystems. So this is, again, where you are connecting to any system, anything where, okay, that's SaaS managed, a licensing server that sits on SaaS managed, is that a potential tunnel into your operational network? So the key risk summary. So we've got AI-fueled cyber attacks. They are faster and they are scalable. And don't forget, you can look at this and think, I pay £30 a month for a ChatGPT query and I can only go and make 10 queries a day and it goes and kicks me off. Yeah, that might be your situation. However, don't underestimate how many other tools there are. And bear in mind, we are all very conscious about the threat that is coming from state, where there are state actors who are targeting not necessarily to diminish systems capabilities, but to go and find foreign secrets and things like that. So when you do hear about large state-backed LLMs appearing, you've got to question what are the future capabilities of them to be able to go and bring them in as a threat actor that's state-backed. So those will become very, very scalable for those type of organizations, or using private GPTs to be able to go and do this themselves. Legacy operational technology we talked about, lowering the skill barrier, and also your customer workloads introduce new risks. So the biggest risk within AI, within your entire data center, isn't necessarily you being hacked from external. It's actually your customers leaking their own information externally by loading spreadsheets into a GPT interface and saying, create me a report, and all of a sudden payroll information has gone into a training data system. So that's something which is a threat, which maybe is not a direct threat to you, but it is a direct threat to your customers, in which case we need to handle that as well. So Business Insider, they talk about 80% of bank security executives feel they cannot keep up with AI-powered criminals. I think people turn a blind eye to it. They look after the known threat, but understand that AI, as much as you're sat here thinking, how can we go and leverage it for our business, so are they. So in terms of the strategy, first thing is asset visibility. We need to understand a complete inventory of all of our critical systems. And when I say critical systems, I don't just mean the ones that are the biggest, well-known. I mean the ones that can cause critical failure. We need to identify all externally facing assets, and we need to go and produce continuous monitoring on those as well. Now, all that's going to do is going to tell you if you've got some unusual behavior within there. Typical cybersecurity type process. We'll come on to the alternatives on that. But that will improve our situational awareness of our digital infrastructure. It will reduce the dwell time for threat actors, because that's one of the things that you'll all know well, that actually the first attack isn't really symptomatic. It is probing, it's testing, it's seeing what is out there. And so being able to go and cut off that unexpected traffic or unwanted traffic is a good way that we can actually stop them dwelling and starting to try different things. And it also enables that proactive mitigation of our vulnerabilities, because we're actually aware of what's coming in at that time. And of course, it supplies our compliance, which you'll all know well. The next part is to harden that remote access. And I guarantee that this is probably the weakest area of most organizations, because the remote access is traditionally not just served from your own technology, from your own stack and given out. There's going to be some level of third party within there as well, especially if it's a management platform that's hosted on a website or something like that. But they are critical. So being able to go and deploy zero trust architecture principles, making sure that we say, you know what, actually it's only used by one guy, sometimes every so often, and all it can do is just close down one sector of a data center for cooling. Understand that there's your threat, there's your in. We need strict authentication and segmentation. The panel talked previously about being able to go and segment that from the network. That's really, really critical. And making sure that where we have deep levels of sensitivity of information, or clients with deep levels of sensitivity of information, we need to make sure that they are segmentable as well, and obviously minimize our necessary exposure. So this prevents unauthorized lateral movement into the critical system. Again, you will know the biggest threat within cybersecurity is not them getting straight to the system that is the most critical. It's actually the adjacent one here that no one's thought is critical, but it allows us to go and tunnel in, potentially even rewriting code within that system to go and force and execute an attack from within. That's where we want to go and look at the most vulnerable areas. Reduce that attack surface exposure for the AI-driven reconnaissance, as I said, not allowing them to dwell within there. And also it enables the compliance and the strength of controls. And then use AI defensively. Now, this is going to be critical. As much as AI is the enemy in this conversation, it is the friend, and I would argue the only resolution that you will have. Now, why is that? Because we've talked about the fact that these AI tools can go and not just force the attack, but they can create the attack in the first place. So what we've typically done when managing threats in the past is understand the pattern of the threat. With AI, not only is it able to go and create a threat that looks slightly different, maybe even every time it executes, it looks slightly different. Don't forget, it can create packets of information to look like other things. So being able to go and just do this purely on a pattern isn't necessarily going to work with old technologies. So what we need to do is we need to go and not say that looks different, but almost look at the other way around and say all of these look the same, I'm allowing them, and then really go for a zero trust in terms of anything that doesn't look like this is not coming in. It will only get you so far. But being able to go and deploy AI-driven threat detection and analytics is going to be crucial for organizations going forward. AI-assisted red team exercises. So we need to train the teams. We need to go and do these team exercises so that they fundamentally understand what an AI attack could look like within here, and could look like, not does look like. So we're going to have to educate them in terms of what the possibilities are here that AI can bring. And then predictive threat modeling in there as well. And again, using that to be able to go and do almost AI based penetration and vulnerability testing will allow us to start exposing some of these the vulnerable systems that we have within our environment. Regulatory readiness. So I throw this one in there. I think it's really, really important to go and to look at. I'm going to be really honest. I don't think that regulatory readiness is going to reduce your risk profile. It's just going to reduce the fallout when you get breached by an AI attack. And it is when you get breached. We all know that. We all know that it's no way of actually stopping this 100%. But ultimately, what we need to do is make sure that people are following regulatory compliance. You will always want to do more, but make sure that that is the minimum, that we are following regulatory guidelines. Now, at the moment, of course, there are no regulatory guidelines for us to follow specifically, but be prepared for the EU AI Act and keep up to date with the movements around there and make sure that you have a plan to go and deploy this as it comes in, because fundamentally that is going to be something that your customers are going to demand. And if you get attacked and you haven't conformed to that regulation, then you leave yourself open to a lot of a minimal way contractual exposure. Align to the cybersecurity frameworks is a given anyway, but you've got to document the AI system security practices. You've got to make sure that you are showing that you are doing things to avoid just not the norm, these patterns of cybersecurity attacks, but that you are deploying ways to be able to go and look at what we would have normally known as the zero-day risk. Now it's a little bit more than just a 0 day. It's kind of 0 second risk that we have now. Key recommendations. So secure your operational systems. Everyone is going to tell you to harden your network, right? That's great. Fine, do it. But understand it's not the network that is going to be the most vulnerable. It's the things that sit around your network. We have seen organizations be attacked where the cooling has been shut down. We have seen organizations where not only did that cooling get shut down, which then effectively turned off all of the resources in there. Everything eventually powered down, but also door systems failed. So not only did we have a cyber attack at that point, we also had a physical access issue because as soon as the cooling shut down, a lot of these older organizations are instructed to open the doors for public for safety of individuals. So you've got to consider what your policies are within there, and should those ancillary systems or the support systems for your data center get compromised, what is the impact? Okay, train staff on AI enhanced threat models. Ideally engage with people who are doing the AI-based penetration testing, vulnerability scanning. No longer can you go and buy your Qualises and Nessus and things like that and go and say, yep, that's good enough. You need to make sure that you are fighting fire with fire. Fight AI with AI. Reduce the threat within via customer education. You do not want to hear on the front page of the news that there's one of your customers has had a huge breach. It doesn't look good. You are only in so much control of what's in there, but you're going to have to start educating the customer about the AI risk within their network, because again, the threat might not be you, the threat might be them. And once the attack is into their network, what can it then permeate into from within? And again, fight with fire. So I will leave you with questions. I won't cover that part there. But I'll leave you with questions. Hopefully, I've bought you back a little bit of time there and ask any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
That was a really good session. Thank you. The question just came in. When do we anticipate the EU AI Act?
I don't know. I think the biggest question is when do we anticipate the UK to adopt the EU AI Act? That is a very dodgy territory that we have at the moment. And also, quite frankly, I think the question is how much the UK is going to get pressure from the US when it comes to AI regulation. I think that when it comes to AI, there is a state-funded fight at the moment for who is going to be the AI leader. We saw that under Rishi Sunak's government, where they hosted the AI conference. Understand that if you were to host an AI conference, you would not invite the audience that he invited. He invited very much people who were looking to make a lot of money out of AI, and there was no one around societal issues, around people of marginalized peoples represented in there. So we look at bias and fairness and things like that. It was a business conversation. So don't underestimate the fact that every state at the moment is saying, how can we go and increase our GDP through AI? We saw the announcement over in the US in terms of $500 billion worth of private investment agreed to go and fund AI within America. So I am not fully convinced that we will adopt the EU AI Act within this country wholly. I believe that we will have a flavor of it, which, rightly or wrongly, will have a US twang.
Yeah, I think there's already been discussions in the EU in terms of whether or not they're going a bit too far with their regulation in terms of strangling any innovation. So there's got to be that discussion in the UK as well if we want to be that AI leader, especially since we don't seem to have the war chest in terms of finances that the EU have offered or the US has offered in terms of billions and billions. We don't quite have that to offer. So maybe a more flexible regulatory landscape could be where.
And I think also opening up land purchases as well. If everyone's seen what's happened to the Gigavolt factory or what was to be the Gigavolt factory in for the extremely eye-watering purchase there of the land to create what is being called an AI data center. So that is something that I think is quite interesting as a kickoff for the government starting to open up and reduce some of that red tape that organizations can start building here and welcoming in foreign investment.
Yeah, I think that's been a major issue in the UK, planning. But let's hope that can be solved. We do have a question from Alan Stuart Brown, who was on the previous panel. He has said, what is the best practice regarding where to host your AI cyber defense tools in your own data center or another?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think it depends on the tool. I think we've got to accept that there are going to be um, some large players in this space who are going to be hosting their own tools. I think that the race is going to be won by effectively SaaS providers who are going to be doing hosted tools with agents, so agent full hosted tools. I think that's going to be the correct sort of landscape because of how quick they can get to market. And that is going to bring in a whole other raft of issues. I talked about the third party, your supply chain. That supply chain gets extended, they become a vulnerability as well. You have to hope that if that's what they're doing, they actually are the forefront of that protection. But then you look at things like data provenance of where it's going. I work with a lot of European organizations who are saying, I'm not touching American firms right now. I want to go for European basis. They don't even want American code. They want to go and invest within European organizations. So it's a bit of a weird landscape at the moment for lots of reasons that we can't all explain. But I think that at the moment, if you want to go and get a robust solution, you are going to probably be looking at a hosted solution and not taking those tools within there. Because let's face it, the way of the world now is building those tools for vast amounts of SaaS-based profit. I don't think there's going to be anyone doing that unless it's kind of military grade and that is going to be effectively built on a bespoke basis, in which case not many will be able to afford it.
Yeah, it's quite expensive. We also had a question from James Holding, who said, hypothetically speaking, what would an AI attack look like compared to a regular cyber attack?
It will look like a regular cyber attack.
Yeah, I assumed that was going to be your answer.
Yeah, it will absolutely look like a regular cyber attack, but you may look at it and think, I have got 20 unique attacks going on right now from 20 completely different locations. It's some of them it's denial, a distributed denial of service. Some of it looks like code injection, SQL code injection. So they will all look different and could be originating from the same source. That is the scary part. You have no idea what it will look like. It will look like all of them.
Yeah, that is terrifying to
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
about. But thank you for that. That is all the questions.